Hello, how is everyone? A lot of folks know that I like to run when I travel, and that's what I'm doing now. That's why I look so hideous. I just stopped over in front of the White House. I'm in Washington, D.C., and you can kind of see the White House behind me. And, I was just thinking a little bit about the politics of this town. I don't have to describe it for you. Everyone knows, right? Congress has an approval rating that's around 12%. It's been there since at least for the last 10 years or more. Republicans or Democrats, doesn't matter who's in charge, you end up getting basically the same thing. I guess what I wanted to do is just say, look, if you're depending on the people in the building behind me after January 20th to somehow fix everything and make it all better, that's not happening. And the folks down the road at the Capitol building aren't going to fix things either. Whether it's Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or somebody else in the White House, really it depends on us back in the states to do the right thing. We have these state legislatures that are supposed to basically, in addition to running the affairs of state government, push back a little bit against the federal government. And that's not been happening. Not in Idaho, not in any other state really. Some states are maybe taking a little bit of an effort, but a lot of states really are flunking when it comes to pushing back against the federal government. So the work we have to do is not in Washington, D.C. If you know who your U.S. senators are, but you don't know who your members of the legislature are in Idaho or any other state, there's a real problem. So what I encourage you to do is, yes, it's important to pay attention to the race for the White House, and it's important to pay attention to what Congress is talking about and doing. But if you don't know who your state legislator is, and you haven't called them up to talk to them, there's a problem. Because those are the people who are going to really make the difference when it comes to how our country proceeds forward. The state of Idaho in particular is very well positioned to fight back against the tyranny of the federal government. They haven't been doing it very well. In fact, just by way of an example, the Obama administration sent down those guidelines, in quotation marks, regarding bathrooms in public schools. Whether you agree with that or not, that's not a decision that should be made by the people in Congress or by the White House. It should be made by people back in our home states, our school boards, city councils, county commissions, and private sector individuals making the decision instead of the people in Washington, D.C. What did Idaho do about that? Well, we sent out a strongly worded news release, so that happened. And then later on, we continued accepting money from the federal government, the money that's already being used to tie our hands when it comes to the policies in our public schools. In fact, the list of grants that came out the other day from the State Department of Education was for a bunch of cafeteria equipment. So the state of Idaho, hate to use the word literally, but it literally went ahead and took money from the federal government right after being told that the money we're taking from the federal government is causing our problems in the first place. And Clinton, you're right when you say, if you don't know who well, I guess you're quoting me. Clinton said, if you don't know who your state legislators are, there's a problem. And I guess I had said that. Thanks, Clinton, for saying it again. Yeah, there are a lot of folks that I talk to, and they'll tell me all day long what Raul Labrador is doing, and Jim Risch, and Mike Crapo, and Mike Simpson. But that's important. But my gosh, I sure wish we do a lot more talking about what's going on in Idaho, where we really have an opportunity to make a difference. So if you, like I said, you can go to the state legislature's website, legislature.idaho.gov. You can also go to our websites. The IdahoFreedom.org has a lot of information about legislators and their voting records. I'm sure you've heard of the Idaho Freedom Index, and you can take a look at how we keep eye on legislative voting record. But like I said, I'm kind of walking away from the White House right now. But as I walk around the city, I'm amazed at how much people know about every little intricacy of the political world inside the Beltway, and so little about what's going on in their state houses and their county courthouses and their city councils. I was just at Nampa City Hall, by the way, just by a really great example. I was at Nampa City Hall last week, and I apologize for the runny nose and the sweaty. Like I said, I just got done running and landed, just outside the White House. But then I'm going to go run again here in a little bit. But I was at Nampa City Hall, and they were fretting about whether to cut funding for the bus service. And there were council members who previously they voted to cut funding for the bus service because they look around, they see there's no one on these buses. And so they voted, a couple weeks ago to cut funding. Well, they had a redo Tuesday night because they were being told that if they cut funding for the bus service, they were going to lose federal dollars. So you have a bus system that's transporting no one, and we're funding it because we might pull down some grant money from the federal government, and our masters in Washington, D.C. are going to love us better. It's absolutely absurd. Anyway, and yes, Anthony, please, I agree wholeheartedly. Let's shut off the national news media and focus on the state issues. The national stuff, like I said, it's interesting, and you should pay attention to what's going on. But no one is going to see a change in our country come January 20th just because we have a new president. We still have problems with regard to the coverage of local issues. And frankly, our news media in Idaho doesn't do a very good job covering our issues. That's the reason why Dustin Hurst, our communication director at Idaho Freedom Foundation, it also doubles as a news reporter, and he wrote some pretty good stories recently about some of the special interest tax breaks, just ridiculous stuff that's going on in state government, and we have the ability to stop that if people know what's happening. And so many people just depend on legislators to go around saying, oh, I'm a conservative. All right, well, if you're a conservative, how come our government keeps growing? It's ridiculous. And growing by the rates that it is. Idaho's general fund budget grew about 8% last year. And what was the average rate of growth in other states in the country? It was about 2.5%. So we're doing something wrong. It's not about the letter next to the name, Republican, Democrat, whatever. It's about the policies. And if people say that they support limited government, by golly, we should see limited government. Yeah, Tom was commenting about KMVT. Yeah, I used to work at KMVT a little more than 20 years ago. And we didn't do really good news coverage back then when I worked there as a news producer. So, and I've actually been watching some of the stories on KMVT and some of the other local news sources in Idaho, and they're terrible. They take official word as gospel. They never challenge anything relative to some of the policies in the state. Well, that's what we're here for. That's why we work so hard at Freedom Foundation to spread the word about free markets and conservative principles and Idaho solutions. You're just not getting that from other places, and frankly, the news media buys into the mantra that more government's good. You watch all the conversation taking place about adding people onto the Medicaid rolls and all the stories about the gap population. And then on top of that, you've got at the Add the Words Brigade. I mean, it's just constant drumbeat of big government. So that's why we exist. That's why we do this hard work. And I just want to say one other thing while I make my way over to the Capitol building. Thanks for staying with me, by the way. The problems that we're facing are not insurmountable. We have a lot of real opportunity to do some wonderful things. And by the way, there are some people who, in addition to that, who are doing the work. They're voting against big government. They're fighting against the establishment and the special interest groups who want more programs and more government employees and higher taxes, and they're working really hard. It's hard doing this work, by the way. I say by the way a lot. I'm sorry, I'm out of breath and unfocused. But the fact is that there are a lot of people who are pushing on us right now to support bigger government, to stop fighting so hard, to stop being a pain in the butt, to maybe lighten up. I get that a lot. Why don't you lighten up on some of the legislators who are Republicans who vote for big government? Well, I don't see liberty as something that I get to trade on. Simple as that. You're either for free markets, limited government, low taxes, and all that stuff, or you're not. And yes, we can be criticized for holding true to those values, but I'd prefer that to being criticized for abandoning our principles. So, New West Project, Anthony. The liberals certainly have been working on how to message and to distort the truth. Frankly, it's interesting you should mention that too, by the way, because just the other day, in fact, there was a group that formed what they called Idaho Freedom PAC. And they claimed they never heard of Idaho Freedom Foundation or our sister organization, Idaho Freedom Action, which I find to be somewhat absurd. But having said that, so they create this organization called Idaho Freedom PAC, and now they're going around, and it's a big government group, by the way, if I didn't make that clear. They're a big government group, and so they basically took what essentially is our name, and they're going to try to trick voters into thinking that they're supporting freedom principles. We operate on telling the truth. We operate on trying to sell conservative principles, sell liberty as a solution for our problems. And we're not going to trick people into believing it's something that it's not. So anyhow, Clinton, I'm trying to read what you're saying here. You have a very good point. Until those of us who value limited government run for local races, absolutely. I think it's important for all of it, not just to run for office, by the way. That's part of the equation. But the other part of the equation is also showing up for meetings and such. I mean, I talk to people all the time who, city halls and county courthouses and school boards, those places, the meetings are devoid of people except for the folks who are either getting money from government, want to get money from government, or in government, So those are but we need are more actual citizens showing up, both to run for office, of course, as Clinton says, but also to be there to represent the market, represent liberty, represent freedom, and so that's a very important task. Anyway, I've been going on, and it's sure been fun talking to everybody. Sorry for looking a mess. Got to do some running. To my Fitbit friends who are trying to challenge me, I'm catching up to you. Anyway, have a good day. Talk later. Bye.